The morning air hung heavy with mist over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, a quiet town nestled in the shadow of Oregon's coastal mountains. The gravel crunched under the tires of early arrivals at the old shooting range, a weathered outpost of concrete and steel where locals honed their aim. Among them was a woman in her late 30s, unassuming in every way. She wore a faded denim shirt tucked into worn cargo pants, her dark hair pulled back under a plain green cap. Her boots, scuffed and practical, left faint prints in the damp earth as she carried a nondescript black case to the farthest lane. Nothing about her begged for attention, yet she moved with a precision that spoke of years spent mastering her craft. From his perch in the range's control booth, Sam Carver sipped black tea from a chipped mug, his eyes scanning the newcomers. 30 years as a Coast Guard veteran had sharpened his instincts, and running this range for the last decade had only honed them further. He could read people like a book, hunters calibrating for deer season, hobbyists with their polished gear, or the occasional off-duty deputy squeezing in target practice. This woman didn't fit any of those molds. She set up her rifle with quiet efficiency, her hands moving in a rhythm that felt almost mechanical, deliberate, practiced, flawless. Sam leaned forward, squinting through the fogged glass. Her first shots rang out, each one striking the center of the target with a precision that made his brow furrow. Then, without touching her scope, she shifted to a target 300 yards out, then 500, then 800, an impossible distance for her setup. Every shot hit dead center. Sam noticed her breathing. A slow 4-count inhale, a steady hold, a soft exhale as her finger grazed the trigger. She adjusted for the faint morning breeze without a wind gauge, her eyes flicking to the swaying pines as if reading their secrets. A regular shooter, a burly man with a hunting rifle, approached Sam's booth, his voice low. "That woman down there, she's hitting shots that don't make sense. No badge, no name tag. Something's off." Sam nodded, his gut tightening. He'd seen skill before, but this was different. This was something else. Half an hour later, 2 sheriff's deputies arrived, their boots heavy on the gravel. The senior officer, a wiry man with a salt and pepper mustache, approached the woman cautiously. "Ma'am, we need your ID and your firearm permit." She turned, her hands open and visible, her face calm as still water. "Is there an issue, officer?" she asked, her voice steady, betraying nothing. "ID and permit," he repeated, his hand resting near his holster. She tilted her head slightly. "I don't have them on me." A quick pat-down revealed no wallet, no phone, just a blank keycard and a small leather notebook filled with cryptic numbers that looked like grid coordinates. The deputy's eyes narrowed. "You're coming with us." She didn't resist as they cuffed her, her wrists steady as the steel clicked shut. No arguments, no explanations. Just a quiet compliance that seemed to unsettle the officers more than defiance would have. As they led her to the cruiser, Sam watched her scan the horizon, the tree line, the winding road, the distant ridge. Her eyes moved like a predator's, calculating angles and distances only she understood. The Willow Creek Sheriff's Office was a squat brick building, its interior a maze of flickering fluorescent lights and chipped linoleum. The woman sat in a holding cell, her silence deafening as the booking officer tried to coax answers from her. "Name?" he asked, pen hovering over the form. Nothing. "Address?" Silence. "You know it's a crime to refuse identification, right?" Her eyes met his, clear and unflinching, but she said nothing. Detective Lena Torres took over, her years in law enforcement giving her a knack for breaking tough cases. She tried everything. Casual small talk, veiled threats of federal charges, promises of leniency. The woman listened politely, her expression unchanging, her silence absolute. "Got ourselves a ghost," a deputy muttered, half joking. "Maybe she's some kind of operative." The room chuckled, but the laughter felt hollow. Alone in her cell, the woman's demeanor shifted subtly. Her eyes traced the room's corners, noting the security camera's blind spots, the rhythm of the guards' patrols, the placement of the fire exit. A young deputy brought her a paper cup of water. As she reached for it, her sleeve slipped, revealing a faint scar on her forearm, jagged, like the mark of a rope burn from a high-stakes rappel. "That's a nasty scar," the deputy said, fishing for a reaction. "Climbing mishap," she replied softly, her first words all day. The deputy blinked, thrown by the sudden response. By late afternoon, a public defender named Greg Harlan arrived, his tie askew and his briefcase overflowing with papers. "You're making this impossible," he told her, exasperated after 30 minutes of one-sided conversation. "They're throwing around terms like a national security threat." "That rifle of yours? It's not in any database." She listened, her face unreadable, her posture relaxed but alert. As they prepared her for arraignment the next morning, Detective Torres noticed something odd. Despite the orange jumpsuit and the cuffs, the woman carried herself with a quiet confidence. Not the bravado of a criminal, but the certainty of someone who knew the game was already won. Outside, the Willow Creek Courthouse loomed, a stone relic from the 1890s with creaking floors and stained glass windows. The courtroom was packed, locals whispering, reporters scribbling, and a handful of men in dark suits standing like sentinels along the walls. Judge Miriam Caldwell, a no-nonsense woman with steel gray hair, scanned the docket with a scowl. At the defendant's table, the woman sat beside Harlan, who looked increasingly frazzled. "Your Honor," he began, "I request a continuance. My client hasn't cooperated, and I'm unprepared." Before the judge could respond, a man in a suit stood. "Your Honor, I'm Agent Reynolds from the Department of Homeland Security. We request immediate transfer to federal custody for potential national security concerns." Another suit rose, cutting in. "The FBI claims jurisdiction, Your Honor. This ties to an ongoing investigation." Judge Caldwell slammed her gavel, her voice sharp. "This is my courtroom. We'll proceed with the arraignment, then address jurisdiction." The clerk read the charges: unregistered firearm possession, refusal to identify, suspected terrorist activity. The woman sat motionless, her gaze fixed forward, her posture a study in discipline. Detective Torres, seated near the front, watched her closely, a nagging feeling growing in her chest. This woman didn't fit any profile, not terrorist, not criminal, not unstable. Something else entirely. Then the courtroom doors groaned open. The air shifted as a Coast Guard rear admiral in full dress uniform strode down the aisle, his chest gleaming with medals, flanked by 2 officers in crisp whites. The room fell silent. Veterans in the gallery snapped to attention, their spines rigid out of instinct. The admiral handed a sealed envelope to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Caldwell. Her eyes scanned the pages, her face paling as she absorbed the contents. After a long pause, she spoke, her voice steady but tight. "Based on documentation from the Department of Defense, all charges are dismissed. This matter is now classified under national security." She struck her gavel. "Court adjourned." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as the bailiff unlocked the woman's cuffs. For the first time, she spoke, her voice soft but commanding. "Sir, I apologize for the disruption." The admiral's reply silenced the room. "No apology needed, Lieutenant Commander. The Coast Guard owes you one." At the word commander, every military veteran in the room, bailiffs, spectators, even Agent Reynolds, stood straighter, their respect palpable. Detective Torres watched, stunned, as the woman's demeanor transformed. Gone was the unassuming figure. In its place stood a leader, her shoulders squared, her presence undeniable. Judge Caldwell, a former military lawyer, rose and offered a nod of acknowledgement to both the admiral and the woman. "Thank you, Your Honor," the admiral said. "Lieutenant Commander Ellis has been operating under classified orders. Discretion was paramount." Outside, reporters swarmed as the woman, now in civilian clothes, a tailored blazer and slacks, stood beside the admiral near a sleek black SUV. Sheriff Amos Burke approached, his face a mix of frustration and awe. "Admiral, my department needs answers. We treated this as a terrorist threat." The admiral's tone was firm but diplomatic. "Sheriff, Lieutenant Commander Ellis is one of our finest. Her assignment is classified. But rest assured, she's no threat. She's a protector. Detective Torres stepped forward, her voice low. Commander, I'm sorry for how this went down. The woman's eyes met hers, sharp but kind. No need, Detective. You did your job. An older man in a veteran's cap shuffled forward, his voice trembling. Ma'am, I was a radio man in the Gulf War. I knew there was something about you in there. Thank you for what you do. She shook his hand firmly. And thank you for yours. The Admiral glanced at his watch. Commander Ellis, we need to move. Operation Quiet Anchor awaits your debrief in D.C. Sheriff Burke's eyes widened. Quiet Anchor? The operation that stopped the shipping yard attack last year? The Admiral offered a vague nod. Commander Ellis has served with distinction. Most of her work will never see the light of day. As they moved toward the SUV, the law enforcement officers formed an impromptu honor guard. Those with military backgrounds saluted as she passed. Detective Torres watched, finally understanding. This woman hadn't been hiding guilt. She'd been concealing greatness. The sun dipped low over Willow Creek's shooting range, painting the sky in hues of amber and slate. The fog had lifted, leaving the air crisp and the distant targets faintly visible in the twilight. Sam Carver, the range's grizzled overseer, locked the main gate, his boots scuffing the gravel as he made his final rounds. The day's chaos, the arrest, the courtroom drama, still lingered in his mind like the echo of a gunshot. As he checked the farthest lane, headlights pierced the dusk. A black government SUV rolled to a stop, and Lieutenant Commander Nora Ellis stepped out, her silhouette sharp against the fading light. Gone was the unassuming figure in faded denim. Now she moved with the coiled grace of a panther, her tailored jacket and boots suggesting purpose rather than anonymity. I'm here for my gear, she said, her voice low but carrying the weight of authority. Sam nodded, already moving toward the office. Sheriff sent it back this afternoon. Special delivery. He retrieved a locked case from a secured cabinet, its surface scuffed but unassuming, much like its owner had been hours earlier. Nora opened it, her hands moving with the same precision Sam had noticed that morning, assembling her rifle in seconds. She checked the barrel, the trigger, the stock, each motion a ritual, reverent yet efficient. You could have stepped in earlier, Sam said, leaning against the doorframe, before the deputies showed up. She glanced up, her eyes catching the last of the sunlight. Not my call to make. You didn't push, though. I appreciate that. Sam shrugged, his tea mug still warm in his hand. 30 years in the Coast Guard. I know when to stay out of the way. But I made a call after they took you. Old friend in D.C. with connections. Nora's lips twitched, the faintest hint of a smile. I figured. Thank you. She stepped to the farthest lane, her rifle cradled like an extension of herself. Without a scope, she aimed at a target 800 yards out, a speck in the gathering dark. The shot was nearly silent, the suppressor swallowing the sound. Sam lifted his binoculars, his breath catching as he confirmed the bullseye. That's not standard issue, he said, gesturing to the rifle as she disassembled it with the same fluid ease. No, she agreed, packing the case. It's not. As she turned to leave, Sam called after her. Will you be back? Nora paused, her gaze drifting to the harbor where the silhouette of a Coast Guard cutter loomed against the horizon. Some of us are always nearby, she said softly. You just don't notice. Sam raised a hand in a salute, watching as her taillights vanished into the night. 3 weeks later, Detective Lena Torres sat at her desk in the Willow Creek Sheriff's Office, the hum of fluorescent lights blending with the distant clatter of a coffee machine. Case files were stacked high, but her mind kept drifting to Nora Ellis, the woman's calm under pressure, her unshakable silence. It had left an impression. Her phone buzzed, snapping her back to the present. Detective Torres, she answered, straightening. Detective, this is Rear Admiral Daniel Vaughn, came a voice, steady and commanding. We met during the incident with Lieutenant Commander Ellis. Lena's grip tightened on the phone. Yes, sir. How can I assist you? I'm extending an invitation, Vaughn said. Commander Ellis is receiving a commendation tomorrow at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island. She thought you might want to attend, given your role in the situation. Lena blinked, caught off guard. I'd be honored, sir, but I arrested her. A low chuckle came through the line. Sometimes the toughest challenges teach the most valuable lessons. The ceremony's classified, but we'll handle your clearance. The next morning, Lena drove through the misty dawn to Whidbey Island, passing through layers of security, armed guards, retinal scans, and cryptic passcodes. The ceremony took place in a nondescript hangar, its interior stark except for a small stage and fewer than 40 attendees, most in crisp uniforms or civilian clothes that couldn't hide their military bearing. Lena took a seat in the back, her civilian blazer feeling out of place among the sea of medals and insignias. Admiral Vaughn stepped to the podium, his voice cutting through the silence. Today, we honor Lieutenant Commander Nora Ellis for her exceptional service during Operation Quiet Anchor. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. For security reasons, I can only say that Commander Ellis spent 13 months undercover, neutralizing a critical threat to national security. Lena leaned forward as Nora stepped forward, her dress uniform adorned with rows of ribbons. She bore little resemblance to the unassuming woman Lena had cuffed at the range. Vaughn continued, his tone grave. Commander Ellis graduated top of her class at Naval Special Warfare Training and became one of the first women to qualify for our elite counterterrorism unit. During Quiet Anchor, she eliminated 19 confirmed threats while maintaining deep cover, preventing a coordinated attack on multiple West Coast ports that would have cost thousands of lives. He looked directly at Nora. When her cover was at risk, she upheld operational security, even at the cost of her own temporary detention. Lena's cheeks warmed with a mix of embarrassment and awe. She caught Nora's eye, expecting resentment, but found only a nod of respect. After the ceremony, Lena approached her, hesitant. Commander Ellis, congratulations! Nora shook her hand, her grip firm. Thank you for coming, Detective. No hard feelings. You did your job. Lena hesitated. If I may ask, why let us arrest you? You could have shown credentials quietly. Nora glanced around, then lowered her voice. The operation wasn't over. My cover had to hold, even under scrutiny. The targets had informants in local agencies. If I'd revealed myself, a year's work would have collapsed. Lena nodded, piecing it together. So you let us take you in to protect the mission? Nora's eyes softened. Sometimes the best way to stay invisible is to play the part. The admiral had my back. Another officer signaled for Nora, but before she left, Lena spoke. Your work, it's incredible. Nora's smile was brief but genuine. Just doing what needs to be done. Admiral Vaughn appeared beside Lena as Nora walked away. Remarkable woman, isn't she? He said. Lena nodded. One of a kind. Vaughn's eyes gleamed. Detective, we could use someone with your instincts at NCIS. Ever consider a career shift? He handed her a card. Think about it. 5 months later, Lena stood on the deck of a Coast Guard cutter, the Oregon coast fading into the mist. She'd left Willow Creek behind, trading her detective badge for an NCIS agent's credentials. Her first assignment was as a liaison between local law enforcement and special operations along the Pacific Northwest. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unlisted number. Some of us are always nearby. Welcome to the team. Lena smiled, recognizing Nora's words from the range. She knew their paths might not cross again. People like Nora operated in the shadows, their victories silent. But Lena was part of that world now, ensuring the delicate balance between local duty and covert operations. Her first case landed that afternoon. Agent Torres, the captain said, approaching with a tablet. We've got reports of unusual activity at a private range near our next port. Want to take lead? Lena's lips curved as she scanned the file. A woman, unassuming, hitting targets at impossible distances. Some things never changed. The sky over Willow Creek was bruised with storm clouds, the air thick with the promise of rain. Sam Carver arrived at the shooting range just before dawn, his breath fogging in the chill as he unlocked the main building. To his surprise, the lights were already on, casting a warm glow across the concrete floors. "Who's there?" he called, his hand brushing the holstered revolver he kept for emergencies. A familiar voice answered, calm and steady. "Just me, Sam." Lieutenant Commander Nora Ellis sat at his desk, a folder of satellite images spread before her. Her civilian clothes, a charcoal sweater and cargo pants, blended into the dim light, but her presence filled the room. "Didn't expect you back so soon," Sam said, easing his hand away from the holster. "What's it been, 9 months?" Nora closed the folder, her movements precise. 10. And this isn't a social visit. Sam nodded, catching the weight in her tone. "Agent Torres called yesterday. Said to expect company." Nora's eyes flicked up, a spark of approval in them. "She's sharp. We need the range for the next 72 hours. Exclusive access." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Hunting season's peak. That's a tall order." She slid an envelope across the desk. Inside was a check. It's zeros enough to keep the range running for a year. "That'll cover it," Sam said, tucking it away. "Though I'd have said yes anyway." Nora's lips curved slightly. "We do things right, Sam, especially when no one's looking." By mid-morning, the range transformed into a covert hub. Unmarked SUVs rolled in, followed by a van disguised as a utility truck, its interior humming with communications gear. A dozen operatives arrived, each as unremarkable as Nora had once been, their movements betraying the same lethal precision. Maps lined the walls of Sam's office, and the firing lanes became staging areas for equipment. Agent Lena Torres arrived last, carrying a crate of gear from the NCIS field office. "Sam," she greeted, shaking his hand. "Thanks for hosting." He grinned. "When the country calls, I answer. Besides, Commander Ellis has a way of making things happen." Nora gathered the team in the office, her voice cutting through the low hum of activity. "We've identified a potential threat within 50 miles of Willow Creek. Intelligence points to a major operation within 48 hours. She pointed to the maps, marked with 3 locations: a suburban cul-de-sac, a warehouse district, and a rural farm. These are the possible targets. We need to confirm the right one without tipping them off." Lena studied the map, her brow furrowing. "These are civilian areas. We can't move in without solid evidence." Nora nodded. "Exactly. That's why you're here, Agent Torres. We need to bridge military ops and local law enforcement without breaking protocol." The operation unfolded with surgical precision. Teams fanned out, blending into the town, some posing as utility workers, others as delivery drivers. They monitored radio chatter, tracked vehicles, and mapped patterns, all while staying invisible. Lena coordinated with the sheriff's office, feeding them just enough to justify surveillance without revealing the classified nature of the mission. Sam watched from the sidelines, marveling at the efficiency. These operatives weren't like regular soldiers or cops. They communicated with glances and subtle gestures, their silence louder than words. Late that night, a breakthrough came. An operative intercepted a coded signal from the warehouse district, pinpointing the target. Lena turned to Nora. "We've got probable cause, but this needs to shift to a law enforcement operation." Nora's eyes were steady. "Brief the tactical team, but keep it minimal. Foreign operatives, domestic plot. No mention of our unit or mission details." Lena nodded, already dialing the sheriff. Nora pulled Sam aside, her voice low. "One more thing. When this is over, some details need to stay buried. The equipment, the team, the operation's scope." Sam met her gaze. 30 years keeping Coast Guard secrets. I know the drill." She studied him, then nodded. "That's why we chose this place." The raid launched at 4 a.m., shadows moving under a moonless sky. Local tactical teams backed by federal agents swept the warehouse, while Nora's unit held overwatch from nearby rooftops, ready to intervene if things went south. They didn't. The operation was clean. 10 arrests, a cache of weapons, and a hard drive of intelligence that would keep analysts busy for months. The press release was vague, a joint federal-local bust based on anonymous tips. By noon, Nora's team had vanished, their gear packed into the same unmarked vehicles that brought them. Sam restored the range to its usual state, replacing targets as if nothing had happened. Lena found him in the office, her NCIS badge glinting in the light. "You made this possible, Sam." He shrugged, tossing a spent casing into the trash. "Just doing my part." Nora approached, handing him a card with a single phone number. "If you spot anyone else with unusual skills, call this. We're always looking." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Recruiting?" She nodded. "The best ones are hard to spot. Unless you know how." Sam tucked the card into his pocket. "Was any of it real? The arrest? The courtroom?" Nora's eyes gleamed. Sometimes the best cover is a spectacle. People remember the drama, not the truth. Sam chuckled. "You'd have made a hell of an operative yourself," she said, turning to leave. "I'm good here," he called after her. "Someone's got to keep the lights on for people like you." 3 months later, Sam noticed a new shooter at the range, a woman in her mid-20s. Her blonde hair tied back, her movements crisp as she handled a rifle with professional ease. She wasn't flashy, but her shots were too precise, her wind adjustments too instinctive. She logged her results in a small tablet, her cover story, competitive shooter from a local college, polished but thin. Sam watched, recognizing the same tells he'd seen in Nora. When she finished, he approached. "Nice shooting. Military?" She smiled, deflecting. "Just college team practice." He nodded, letting it go. "You're welcome back anytime." That evening, Sam dialed the number from Nora's card. "Blue Tide, Calm Shore," he said, using the code Lena had given him. "Go ahead," a voice replied. "Got a shooter today, young, female, expert marksman. Says college team, but moves like one of yours." A pause. "Assessment?" Sam leaned back in his chair. "Either she's testing me or she's someone you need to know about." Another pause. Longer. "Commander Ellis, is she still in the area?" The voice was curt. "That name's not active here." Sam understood. "Just checking. Anything else?" The voice softened. "Your input's valued. We'll follow up." Days later, the young woman returned, this time with a man in his 40s, his posture radiating quiet authority. They shot together, their dynamic suggesting mentor and trainee. When they finished, the man approached Sam. "Mr. Carver, you made a call recently." Sam kept his expression neutral. "I did." The man nodded. "Good instincts. She's a candidate for our program. Part of her test was blending in here." Sam glanced at the woman who was packing her gear. "She's good, but the wind trick gave her away. Same as Commander Ellis." The man's eyes flickered at the name. "Keep that to yourself," he said, handing Sam an envelope with a new card, this one bearing a Naval Special Warfare insignia. "We could use a training site, and observers like you." Sam weighed the offer. After years running the range, a new purpose was tempting. "I'll think about it. Commander Ellis vouched for me?" The man nodded. "Her word carries weight." As they left, the young woman offered a respectful nod. "Can I practice here again?" Sam grinned. "Miss a few shots next time if you want to blend in." Weeks later, a package arrived at the range. A cutting-edge spotting scope with thermal imaging and an encrypted comms module. The note inside read, "Keep watching, Sam." Nora's handwriting was unmistakable. Sam installed the scope, understanding its role.